Hey everybody, welcome back to our podcast. This is Nichole.
And Denny.
You can go ahead and start us.
Okay, so as you can see, we made a couple of changes. We are in a different background, and we have this lovely, I'll let Nichole introduce it.
We have a new name for our podcast, which is Spotless Mind, and we also have a new logo. So here it is right here.
That logo is interesting. Do you want to tell everybody what that logo means?
Well, the name Spotless Mind is a name that I came up with a long time ago, actually when we first met.
That is a long time ago.
It is. Denny actually wanted to do YouTube videos, and that was the name that I had in my head. And Spotless Mind basically is when we're born, I feel like we have a clear mindset of the world, and nothing is negative or degrading or dark or bad to us when we're young. And as we get older and we experience things, we get these little spots on our brains that tells us that this is negative and this is bad. Some of them from experience, and then some of them come from people telling us things, or infiltrating stereotypes. So my thinking is that with this podcast, we want to try to create a more spotless mind, where we're taking away those negative stereotypes and those negative thoughts to going back to more of a clear, more purified way of thinking. So that's where Spotless Mind came from. And then the logo has a panda and it has an afro, and then the curls within the afro are actually made from a brain. So it's like a vector brain, and then the brain lines within the brain creates the curls within the afro, if that makes sense.
That is a lot more than I was hoping for. This podcast, when I was just thinking about it and trying to start it, I was thinking about just the people, about how many people in different countries, because even though we're in America and it's a melting pot of us, there's a lot of people in different nations that are still in this area of interracial dating, where it's not maybe illegal, but it's definitely frowned upon. So I wanted to broadcast this for anybody that's interested in learning more about how do interracial couples really communicate their cultural differences, and how do they overcome that? Because a lot of people think that it's just one way or the other. Either I conform to your culture or you conform to mine, but it doesn't have to be like that. And even though I'm American and I feel like I have a lot of American culture inside of me, I am a 100% blood Chinese,
first generation
Chinese. Yeah, so it's I have a different perspective of things. But someone that's in China that is straight up 100% cultural Chinese person, they're going to be a little bit different in thinking. And I have both of those mindsets, and so I thought that this can bring value to other people that are thinking about other races and relationships and such. So that's how it started. And with the brilliant and beautiful Nichole, with her creativity, which I have no creativity at all, because I am an accountant, and 1 + 1 is 2, unless it's symbolic, and then 1 + 1 is 3, because one and another one, makes the 3. I saw that on a sign. It was, you like that? Okay. But anyway, so today we were thinking about what topics we want to talk about, and I was thinking about the topic of stereotype Asian people. And the first thing we want to talk about today is, why do everybody stereotype Asians and think that Chinese restaurants serve food that has cats and dogs in them? So that is, if you are not aware, because you're not from America, or you grew up in some cubicle lifestyle where you didn't know, a lot of people stereotype and thinks that these Chinese restaurants have cats and dogs, and they're just outside, with a I don't know, a bow and arrow, and they're going into people's neighborhoods and be like, hey, there's a cat. You go there, I go here, and we'll flank him and we'll shoot him down. And so before I get into my thinking of it, I want Nikki here to maybe be unbiased and actually go on their perspective of why do they, as in those people that stereotype, think that these restaurants sell cats and dogs.
Well, I'm not sure if they're thinking, and I try not to stereotype in that way. And when people do, I am the type of person where I correct them, and I don't really like when people say that. I mean, I've had students that make that statement, and I have to kind of go in and tell them like, no, that's not right, but this is where that line of thinking came from. So I mean, I can't tell you why they think like that, but for me, I can understand where they're making that joke, because I mean, you've told me before where it's come from, and you know, you've shared your experience with me.
But
so my thinking has been for so long a different way from what people stereotype as.
But these individuals, okay, so let's go back to these individuals before I give my opinion, is that they were just told that this Chinese, like, they have never seen, and I may be wrong, I can't speak for all of them, but I almost guarantee you 99.9% of them have never seen an Asian person go to someone's house or go to somewhere and kidnap a dog or a cat, and for them to just hear something and then they said, oh yeah, since I've heard this has to be true. But then there's so many other stereotypes that they're like, oh, that's bonkers. But this one, for some reason, it makes so much sense to them that they just believe, is this cat or is this dog? You know?
I think it's more of like people think it's funny.
Oh.
And so, yeah, I don't necessarily think people really think that. I mean, there may be some people that really think that, and they may or may not be right. I don't know. I don't work at a Chinese restaurant. I'm just saying. But I think a lot of people think that it's funny and they think it's humorous, and so they go off of that joke when they are at a Chinese restaurant.
And then I like, oh man, it's like, okay, so here are some facts about cats and dogs. One,
they are pets.
Not for everybody. Some people, they're meals. For some folks, they're meals. For some people, they are pets, and some of them are just wild animals. They're still wild cats in certain parts of this world. They're still wild dogs. They're called wolves. And I'm pretty sure there's other wild dogs that I have no knowledge of at all. But here are some facts. Okay, the fact is, in America, it is illegal to kill a cat or a dog. Fact number one, right? So let's go to fact number two. Fact number two is, if these people, in America, we have this thing called the health department. And if these people were serving cats and dogs, the health department has to obey by policies and regulations. And if they go there and they see any signs of a cat or a dog, not even being eaten or killed, but just in that facility, that is health problems that is gonna close down that restaurant. So, okay, just those two facts alone, how stupid was somebody trying to make a long-term investment in a restaurant to sell you a cat or dog when they could easily go to the store and buy a chicken and cut it up and serve you chicken that says on the menu? Your perspective?
I mean, just because it's illegal doesn't mean people don't do it. In Georgia, it's illegal to have marijuana, but there's several people that still smoke marijuana. So I mean, whether it's illegal or not, I don't think that really has a bearings on what someone will or will not do. And I will say that the Chinese restaurant here in my hometown, ever since I was young, I always remember them having their back door open because this Chinese restaurant, you know which one I'm talking about, is like in the middle of
Is it China 1 or China 2?
No. They are in the middle of a parking lot, and they always have their back door like open.
You talking about the buffet?
This is here in the hometown.
Yeah.
And they're in the middle of a parking lot, and they always have their back door open. And this is not like once or twice. Like this has been. I was born in this town, and I've seen it over the years, going to different places near it where they've had their back door open. And there have been animals, mainly cats, walking around in the back. And I mean, this is a parking lot. They share a parking lot with different other stores like Sally's Beauty Supply. I think there's a Papa John's that's over there. Kroger is even over in that way. And I mean, they have their dumpster out back too. And cats are known to be like, you know, the type of animal to be in, you know, trash and pick through and stuff like that. But I'm just saying, I'm just playing devil's advocate that, you know, it's not that far-fetched for people to see this and think that that is what's happening. Because, I mean, if I didn't know any better, I mean, if you constantly have some wild cats out back, and I mean, they could be feeding the cats and their pets or whatever, but if you constantly are having wild cats, I mean, and the stereotype is you eat cats and dogs, it's kind of like.
But wouldn't that be the opposite? If I had my back door open and I was actually eating and killing cats and dogs, why would there be any cats or dogs around that area?
Because they feed them and they're luring them in.
This is Jack and Jill.
Cats and dogs, especially if they're wild animals, are gonna go where there's food. They are not gonna be like, oh my gosh, did you hear about Tom? Last week he was over by the Chinese buffet and he got caught and we haven't seen him in 2 weeks. Like, they're not gonna be thinking like that. They're gonna think, oh, there's food, I smell food, let me go where the food is. And so it's not like crazy to think that there's these animals that are like hanging around out back, but they're also killing them. I'm not saying that's what they are doing. I'm just playing devil's advocate. I mean, how else do a lot of hunters get their food when they're hunting? I mean, they set up traps. You know, it doesn't mean that those animals are going to stop coming because 2 got killed. I mean, instinctively they're going to go where there's food. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that's what they do, of course, and I don't think like that, but I'm just telling you what I have heard from other people.
I mean, is that the strongest, like, if we were in a court case and we were trying to, and you were the defendant's attorney and you had to defend that, hey, this Chinese restaurant is selling cats and dogs in their food, that is your defense?
I mean, the
back door was open and cats were running
cannot
around?
prove, unless you had actual meat in front of you, you cannot prove that they're doing this. But I'm just telling you that this is people's line of thinking when there's already a like, if I walk into the grocery store, right, and there's some watermelon here, and then there's these little bitty lemons here, and someone walks in on the side of the watermelon, not knowing that I'm looking at the lemons because they're too little. If all they see is watermelon and me looking down, they're going to assume that I'm looking at watermelon. One, because I'm black, and the stereotype is that we like watermelon. But really, I'm trying to pick a lemon. So when you already have people that have these spots on their mind of stereotyping people with they eat cats or they eat dogs, and there's this animals, you know, that's, and this is my hometown. I'm not talking about every Chinese restaurant. This is just this particular one. If you constantly are having the same animal throughout the years, like, people are going to talk and they're going to play up that stereotype. But I mean, you can't prove anything unless you have like
I wonder how many
evidence.
Like, I don't know this, and this is definitely not facts here, but I wonder how many cases in America has actually been in front of a court that was a defendant of a person that's owns a Chinese restaurant, probably Chinese person, and has to stand in front of a judge and a audience of his peers and defend himself on, hey, I wasn't serving cats or dogs. I wonder how many of that actually happened, or how many people, a humane society or a pet store sued a Chinese company. I'm just saying, like, how
possible.
What I just don't. I've never heard of it. And
I mean, there's people that have been to other restaurants that are not even Chinese restaurants where they found different things in their food, like fingers.
Fingers?
Yes, there has
like
been.
Human fingers?
Yeah, there was an article not too long ago where somebody's actually found a finger in their food. So it's like, and I think it may be like a part of a finger, like somebody cut their finger
while they're
they're cutting something.
I thought this was like some Japanese mob.
I don't know, but there was an article about that, and then I've also read articles where people have done sexual things to food and left the sexual evidence behind on the actual food. So it's not like...
You sure it wasn't like caramelized sugar or anything like that?
No, and I'm positive it wasn't mayo. So that should tell you.
That's a little bit too white.
I'm just saying, like, you know what it was. But I'm just saying, like, sometimes people are not as ethical as we would like them to be. And I'm sure there may be some cases of that happening.
Maybe. But like, if there is, I've definitely never heard of any of them. Because I, if anybody, would be the first one to jump on that case and read about it. Because then I'll either laugh really hard or be like, dang, freaking, you are the people that made this thing happen.
But you know, I will say, though, with a lot of stuff that happens, I feel like with Asian people here in America, like, it really does not get broadcast, like, anywhere.
That's true.
Like, even with, like, Asian music artists, like, there's none.
BTS?
They're Korean.
And they're Asian.
Yeah, but they're Korean artists. They're not American artists. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no, like,
Asian?
American
Jeremy
Asian
Lin.
artist.
He's an artist. That's the art.
And even, like, you don't even hear about him anymore. Like, there was hype around him because he was, like, the first Asian, like,
American
basketball player. But that's the only reason why he got that hype, is because he was the first of his kind.
Here's a fact.
But nobody else. And so it's like, if it did happen, I don't know if you would have read about it.
Actually,
because we don't talk about Asian people.
Actually, the first Asian person, well, I won't say Asian, the first Chinese person to ever play in NBA was this guy named Wang Zhu. That was before Yao Ming, and I think he played for the Dallas Mavericks, and he was not good. So, anyways, Yao Ming came.
No hype. So.
He got hype from me because I was watching him.
Only Asian people stick within their Asian community. The rest of the world here in America, we don't care. Like, we don't talk about Asian stuff that happens within the Asian community. And I mean, I'm not saying y'all do stuff, but I mean,
yeah,
y'all aren't innocent. I mean, y'all do things just like the rest of us, but it gets no traction within the media here in America.
I think it has to do with